FPK, Future Proof Knowledge Podcast, Mind Unlocked. With every episode we cast real talk, real tools, wisdom on the fly. Tune in, geek out, reach for the sky. FPK, Future Proof Knowledge Podcast.
Future Proof Knowledge Podcast, episode 50. We've hit the half century, and we never thought we would hit this milestone when we kicked it off, and we had to get a special guest in to make it extra special. And no, ladies and gentlemen, the special guest isn't Tana Lara today. We've gone even better than Tana, which I know everyone thought was not possible. But we've got the phenomenal Ray Rodriguez joining us. And Ray, do you want to give us a bit of a snapshot of who you are, what your background is, before we delve into the conversation for today?
Sure, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to do this. But yeah, my name is Ray Rodriguez. I am a professional musician. I'm a married father of 5. Yeah, 5. Sometimes I lose count. There's too many of these guys. And yeah, I worked as a. Oh, what just happened?
You're okay.
Okay. I worked as a music director at a local church here for about 20 years. And I left that job a few years ago, just trying to find something new to do. And then this whole social media thing took off with my vinyl collection. And I found a really cool community. And that's how I met Tana. And here I am.
Yeah. We're going to delve into, I suppose, your vinyl collection and our collective love of vinyl in general. But we're going to come at it from the perspective of the shift and what it tells us about where we are in society in relation to analog, in relation to in real life meetups, and this shift that's starting to come. Now, I know for those of us out there who've been collecting vinyl for a long time and just never stopped, that's one thing. But there definitely seems to be more of a resurgence within younger people looking for reasons to connect with other young people. But these are the young people who are growing up in a digital age where everything is online. And look, we're talking here, and we have a company that is looking to support digitally, and it's so important, though, to have that in real life experience. And Tana, you brought the topic to us, and as always, and I say it every time, I'm so happy when you bring these ideas, because they're always so they're on a different track to maybe where we might go normally, and that's what we need. And I suppose that's the beauty of having so many different people on the team. But talk to us a bit, Tana, about what it was that sparked this idea in your head to have this conversation.
Well, I think one, it's just what's going on literally in the world right now. I think physical media is something that is going away. And the fact that it's going away and digital, you think is such what we do, with AI and everything. But the fact that there was this boom, well, how's it going away? But then vinyl, which, we all love, is booming that market. Okay, well, then how is that? But then, the digital age is coming on. Well, where's that, connection? Okay, and then physical media is going away also too. And I think the PS, it just announced that after 2028, they're not making discs anymore. And I was just like, well, where is all this, what's going on? And I think that this younger generation, I think everybody has always romanticized, their decades of something that they didn't have. But really, the younger generations are not going to have any experiences of that physical connection where they, I remember going to malls and going to like Sam Goody, Camelot, Tower Records, or whatever, and having that experience where you would flip through records, where you would flip through CDs, where you had that, where you had communities. I mean, I still love going to um, record stores or whatever and talking to people, and they're just not going to have that anymore. So I thought it was just so, okay, well, they're saying, digital this and digital that, but then how is, vinyl reached 1 billion cells? So there's something that obviously digital is missing. So I thought it was a really good um, subject for us to discuss. Where,
Yeah,
where's it going?
yeah, and I think you framed it perfectly there at the end. What is digital missing? And there'll be all these conversations around how the robots are going to take over, and we are just going to become the new sheep or the new cattle, and they're going to do whatever they do with us. But it sparked a number of conversations around what does it mean to be human, because for so long we have been measured by our intellect. So humans have been technically more intelligent than any other being on the planet. But if we've created this being, in inverted commas, that is right now way more intelligent than the average human being, and is only going to get more and more intelligent, what does it mean to be a human? And I think this kind of feeds into us having this conversation. And Jason, I want to come to you first. Like, for you, what do you think separates being human from an AI? Because look, let's be honest, somebody will marry an AI robot. Like, that is absolutely going to happen, right? But what is it that you think makes the difference between a human and an AI?
For me personally, when I saw what we were talking about today, an image flashed in my head. That image that flashed in my head, the thoughts and the memories that go along with that image, I think is what makes humans human and AI. AI doesn't have, it has a memory of what you give it, but it doesn't have recollection. It doesn't have its own unique thoughts and senses. The image goes so far as to, I remember the smell around what's in the image. I remember the smell of the barbecue joint down the street. And as Olive would point out, you notice I'm looking up because I have that recall, and it just brings back all those memories. And I think that's the biggest, or I think that's just absolutely what it is, that makes us different. And if this works, that's the image that came to head when I heard about this topic. For those that are listening, it's VIP, World Famous Records in Long Beach, California. That's where I was born and raised. I remember that sign. For me, music was going and flipping through their crates and listening to somebody in the corner on a turntable set, whether they were inside, outside, on the roof, and just the smell of the area being close to the coast. All that comes to mind.
I absolutely love that. And Ray, I'm going to come to you on this one, because building on what Jay Sean was saying, it is so much more than just the music. Like, there was tactile, there was the smell of the vinyl, it was the smell of the sleeve, taking out, reading the liner notes. And like, I think what a lot of people probably won't really appreciate if they haven't gone through the process is that music was very expensive for us to own as kids. So we couldn't just go, oh, someone's told me about Guns N' Roses, let me just go and check them out. We had to save up our cash, and you had to know that you're going to like it. And I can still remember to this day and maybe I've said it before on the podcast, but like getting Radiohead's OK Computer when it came out and listening to it the first time, and I went, no, not for me. But I didn't go near it then for a few months. And because I paid for it and I was a poor student, there was one hungover morning. I was like, okay, I invested in this. There must be something in it. Like, I'm going to have to find at least one song that's good. And whatever it was about the whole scenario, me being hungover, it was a beautiful sunny day in Hull, and I stuck it on, and it was like, boom, I get it. So, talk to me about that process and the importance of having to really invest in listening to an album, because that's so important.
Oh,
Ray, we can't hear you. Sorry. No.
oh no.
You might need to, I don't know, log back in, Ray, maybe. Okay. Tana, I'll throw that question at you while we're
Oh,
waiting
oh
for
no.
Ray. Catch you
Oh no.
on the fly. Talk to me about the albums or the investment that you had to make. And were you the type of person who would just throw an album away after one listen? Or
No.
would you have to
But I was
push
also
through
very
to
selective of what I got because of that. Because I know, because there have been some times where I'm like, do I really want this? Because it is. Albums still. I mean, it's crazy now how much albums are. And also too, I would invest in a lot of like singles with the little cogs. I did a lot of that, and also too, I grew up. I mean, my parents. I always told my parents, if there's anything I want from you, just give me your records. I don't want anything from you. The kids can take whatever they want. Just give me your record collection. Um, and like you said, I would find and listen to records and listen to records because you have to find something that you like. Um, and then also too, because my parents had the records, I grew up also too during the 80s, and I would invest in cassettes, CDs. That's what I did a lot. Are you there, Ray?
I hope so.
You're back, Ray.
Okay.
Okay, jeez, I don't know what happened there. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Okay.
So, yeah, I suppose we were framing that question around, investing, like, apart from the finance, but investing your time and money in that whole experience. Like, was that what you went through as a kid as well?
Is that me now? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what I was saying was you saying it was a commitment to make a decision to buy an album. You have no idea if any of those other songs, other than the hit singles, were any good. And it's kind of like you were saying when you got that Radiohead record. It was different, than maybe what you expected. But that's the whole. I don't know. I mean, it's easy for us to say because we grew up with that. With there was only one way to obtain this music. You couldn't stream it. You couldn't. You couldn't. I don't know. You couldn't find out how anything else sounded. Sort of like them playing it on the radio. So, but all those other points you made up, or you brought up about, holding that in your hands and having to invest in listening to the entire album. It was an experience. It wasn't just something necessarily playing in the background. There was this experience you were having with this album that you bought, whether it was a record or a CD or a cassette. Where I feel like I've talked to my kids about this. Whenever I go on Spotify or Apple Music or anything, I listen to albums. I don't really do the playlist thing. I kind of do, but I generally listen to an album front to back, and they don't do that. They just pick songs that they like for that week,
Yeah.
and then they move on, and I tell them you're missing out on the whole uh, vision of what that artist made that album for, because that album was a piece of art. It was a piece of work. They had a message behind that album. There was a voice behind it. There was a vision behind it. Um, but again, in this fast-paced society that we live in, there's very little patience for that. They're just, they skim. They just, they skip to the next song, to the next song, to the next song. They don't like it within the next 5 seconds. Where when you put an album on, you had no choice. I mean, I guess you could stop it, but you had no choice but to listen to the whole thing. And to your point, where you brought up that Radiohead record, a lot of times you would go back to it. It was a grower. It took time to make sense to you, and that to me is the beauty. It's like a relationship. You get to know somebody. Maybe that first meeting you didn't hit it off. It's kind of, but then that second one, oh, okay, I kind of like this person now, or I'm finding a connection now. It brews and develops, and that's how I've always looked at albums, because you bought it, now you're stuck with it. So you either hang it up in the shelf and let it get dusty, or sometimes you go back to it, and that's something I think you miss when you're just streaming, because there's no commitment. You have all the music at your disposal to go to whenever you want, and it's just not as it's not it doesn't have that validity, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's almost
Uh,
like sorry, go on, Jay Sean.
I'm sorry. So, what kind of collector were you? So, there was two types of people when I was growing up. There was the first type that go find something they like. Usually, they'd go shopping by themselves, and they'd go home, listen to it front to back, flip it front to back, side to side. Then there was the other group of people that would go and get it and immediately go listen to it with their group of friends. The first group would share it with their friends after they had that personal experience with it, but there was those two types of people. Which one were you, Ray?
Oh, I was definitely the recluse that would just take it home and listen to it on my
Yeah.
own. Um, yeah, I never really got to experience what a lot of people talked about, where they would have like a listening party,
Yeah.
experience an album together. I would take it home. I would reflect on it. You know, play it again, or if it was a cassette, I'd rewind it. And I would pick my favorites. And a lot of times I would guess what the next single would be, because sometimes it'd only be, if it was a brand new album, there was just one single that came out to promote the album. I remember that with when I got U2's Joshua Tree. I got it when With or Without You was the first single that came on that album, and that's the only song I'd ever heard. So I'm like, oh, I bet you this next song is going to be the banger, the hit, and I was like happy that I was right, but that was one of those things that it just, when those moments happen, even when you listen with other people, you remember that nostalgia is just like cemented there forever, and again, just going back to what I was saying before, those are experiences you miss. And the younger kids don't know any different, so it's just one of those things. They don't have anything to compare it to. This is just their reality. This is their listening experience. But for me, buying that album, going home, locking myself in my room, and just getting lost in that album, and critiquing it and trying to understand it, there was nothing better.
Yeah, I so anyone who really knows me, they'll know how much of a massive Pearl Jam fan I am, and I used to have a ritual. I'm not even sorry, uh, but
It's all Pearl Jam.
yeah. Don't talk to Jay Sean. He doesn't understand. But I would have a ritual that I would clear my day. So whether I was in university, whether I was in school, whether I was at work, I would clear my day. I'd get up, get straight down to the local record shop. If there was a queue, I'd queue up. If not, I'd just go in, I'd get the record. I wouldn't talk to anybody. I wouldn't want to see anybody. I'd just get home, and I would just immerse myself in the whole experience, like literally tearing the seal on the plastic to get it open, and like proper ridiculously nerdy shit that my friends would absolutely destroy me over. But I don't care. And it was, and still to this day, I will not listen to a new Pearl Jam album on a streaming service. I will only listen to for the first time when I get the record, because that's important to me. It's something that, you know, I've always done since I was a kid. And as long as they're putting out records, I'm going to keep doing it. But I think I want to pick up on something you said, Ray, as well, about the relationship. And it's like a relationship with, and it makes me think about relationships and speaking to my own kids, young people. They seem to be moving away from this online meeting up or matching up or like hooking up online, and it is more about that meeting somebody through a friend or in a pub or in a nightclub or in college. And a lot of them were saying to me, like, no way would I do that online dating thing, because if you think about it, like, a huge part of the mystery is gone with the online dating. Like, you're literally going through picking, this is what I like, this is what I like, this is what I like, this is what I don't like, this is what I don't like. And some algorithm is telling you then, right, these are the people that you should probably look at. And then you go and go, no, 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 yes, no, no, depending on what they look like. But it's all under a prerequisite. And like, I don't know about you guys, but like when I met my wife, we were in school. And obviously we were both attracted to each other like teenagers are. And but like, we didn't know anything about each other. We didn't know what we were interested in. We started talking. We found we had a couple of little interests in terms of music and sport and stuff like that. 30 something years later, the poor woman is still having to put up with me every evening. But like that, and we've been through our ups and downs and our undulations like every relationship. But I think there is a shift within this younger generation who they hear about the way we talk about the nostalgic elements of relationships, of music, and they want that. Mm-hmm. Like, they really want that. Tana, is that your experience?
Yeah, I think that's exactly where I think when there's such a push, you know, things need to rebalance. And I think when there's such a push and of a pendulum of a way things go, there's going to be a push back. And I think that's where these generations, or the younger generation, they want that because it's being taken away from them. They're not getting their chance to have what we had, and they hear it and they see it. I mean, even the generations like our children, my children that are 30, I mean, they experienced it, but like they're the ones that are having children of them, their children aren't going to have it because malls are getting taken down. Like, even in these smaller cities, they're not having any malls or anything, you know, just in the big cities. And even then it's limited. So I really think that that's why they want it so bad. And like movies, like I remember, what's that one with Sandra Bullock and Sylvester Stallone, when they're like, oh, why are you so in love with like Lethal Weapon? And she's like, oh, it's nostalgia, and you know, because they just have like digital, you know, AI simulations, and they're like, you know, you got to get away from that. And she's like, you know, I want to experience it. It is the physical touch experience. Like, I love reading. You know, I have a great imagination, but I can always also too go to my experiences and imagine this. That's why I am a good reader, because I can do that. But when somebody doesn't have anything to kind of relate to that, it's hard to imagine. So that's why I think I'm a good reader in that sense. So it's one thing to where you can, it's hard to, how I can put it, you can read just so much, you need to go experience it. My dad always told me, he's like, yeah, Connie, you can read and read and read, but you need to go experience it too. And I think these children want to experience it, not just, it can just get you so far. And they're being denied that. And they're kind of like aching for it.
Mm.
And so, like I said, with the PS, like not, I know there's a big backlash, and would not be surprised if they, decide to not, to go ahead and start still making discs again or whatever. But like listening to y'all talk about you when you say you only listen to Pearl Jam through a record. It's funny because I told you I started listening to a lot more CDs and tapes and everything, But my parents, I grew up listening to their record collection. It was a Everybody Loves Raymond um, episode that made me start collecting a lot more records again because Ray um, uh, took his dad's record collection and refurbished them all with CDs. And his dad got really mad. He's like, "What'd you take all my, records for? You're an idiot. You can't get that sound quality." And so Ray brought all his records back, and I was like, "Yeah, why don't I listen to my records anymore?" So I started collecting records again because there's just something about vinyl that you just can't get that. And people are like, "No, yes you can." I'm like, "No, you can't. It's just a different sound. It's a different feeling when you have vinyl." And I started remembering, like, when you take out the sleeve, when you read the lyrics, when you have that experience with a record. And so I remember that episode. I was like, why don't I start doing that again? So I did. Anyway, I just thought, but it's true.
Yeah.
But it's that experience, and I just feel that, like I said, I think these children are these younger generations. They want to have that, and they're being denied.
And Ray, are you noticing that now? So you're involved in the music industry now. So are you seeing that, younger people are coming more looking for those in real life, real world experiences of gigs, of talking about vinyl, of talking about guitars or drums or bass? Is that your experience in your musical work?
Well, I'm a little biased because I have a house full of musicians. So, like, I'm a musician, my wife's a musician, both my sons are musicians. So there's always music going on in our house. My son's a drummer, so we're crazy. We have his kit in his room, and he goes at it all every day. So um, we haven't had any complaints from the neighbors yet, so that's a good thing. But we have discussions about music all the time. Um, but I feel like what I was seeing for a while when vinyl in particular, vinyl collecting started getting kind of trendy. You started seeing a lot of kids that didn't even understand what it was to collect records, but they just saw, oh wow, this is kind of a cool thing. It's an old thing that my parents used to do, or my grandparents used to do, or whatever, and they'd go buy their little cheap record player at Target or wherever, and the snob in me would get so like cringed out by that, like, why are you buying that piece of junk? But you know, anyway. Uh, that developed an interest, is what I saw in a lot of young people. But what's amazing to me is that when I go to, like, I buy a lot of used albums, used records. I'll go down to there's a flea market that happens down not too far from where I live, and it's just packed with people buying records. Or they'll have record conventions. I mean, just like they do for comic books or anything of that sort. They're just the community is massive. I don't think a lot of people understand or know of that. So it's always been alive. But the other thing is that for those of us that have kids, we share those moments with their kids of how it used to be. Kind of going back to the point that Tana was talking about, how malls used to be a thing, and I talked about jukeboxes and calling the radio station to request a song, or just those kinds of things that don't happen anymore. And you're your kids are either going to listen or not, just like they do with everything else. So some take interest in that. Like, what's this stuff about? Especially if nostalgia is such a hot topic right now. Like, people are really, you just see that. It's all over social media. The people reminiscing of songs. I mean, that's one of the things I notice most whenever I post an album, because I generally post a lot of anniversary albums. Like today, it was Beastie Boys' "Hello Nasty" album. It's their anniversary today. That album's anniversary. It's the 28th year, and one, people freak out about how old that album is
I
every time I post
know.
it, and they get really upset. They're like, "Don't make me feel old," because reminding them how old they are. But at the same time, they remember, oh, that was the first album I bought with my own money, or I remember where I was when that album came out, or when I first listened to it, and it just brings all this joy to them for the most part, unless it reminds them of some heartache at some point. Um, that excites people. It brings them back to their youth, back to when things were very impressionable, and they share that, I feel, with their kids. Like, that's what me and my wife and I do, and that's why my kids know a lot about music. I mean, my 11-year-old, most of her friends don't know who the Beatles are or who the Eagles are or any of those, and she knows all of them. In fact, sometimes she'll get hyperfixated on some of them, and she'll know facts that I didn't know. Because that's the other good thing about technology. She can just Google anything and find out the background of people, and so I think that's what sparked a lot of interest. Is we've got all these parents that grew up with that are sharing those with their kids or the next generation, and they're just picking up on it.
Mm. And I've kind of found, like, through conversations over the last, say, 10, 15 years with friends, and they'll go like, music now is just terrible. There's nothing inspiring. There's nothing good. But I'm pushing back on that now, because there's actually some phenomenal young bands who are influenced by our bands that we were into as teenagers.
Right.
And certainly in Ireland, and I'm sure it's the same in different pockets around the world, like in Ireland, there is this groundswell of absolutely brilliant young rock, punk bands coming up, and there's a great scene. And myself and my eldest daughter now are like, like we did, like myself and my wife did when we were younger. We're like, let's pick a gig and we'll just go see this band, and we'll go see this band, and like, you're going. And I was at there's an Irish band called Sprints. If you haven't heard them, check them out.
Okay.
So they were playing in a great little venue in Dublin just before Christmas last year, and I said to my daughter, "Do you fancy going? They're really good." And she was like, "Sure." It was the most 90s gig I have been to since the 90s. There was mosh pit, there was crowd surfing, and it was just young people, like people her age, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, and then people my age, late 40s,
Right.
but it was just brilliant. The energy was just so phenomenal. And then once you start to see younger people, then you start to, and this is where social media is good, and algorithms can be good. They'll fire up similar bands. So then you start to come across, Gurriers, who are another great band that are fantastic. Die Spitz are a fantastic band from the States. Like, there's all of these brilliant bands. So I actually think we had to go through that dull phase, we'll call it, of not much inspirational music, getting much coverage, to now, with social media, we don't need the radio to be the one to make the stars anymore, because social media can make those stars, which I think is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I think that was definitely a transitional period happening, when we went from radio to how people. I mean, I remember asking my kids that question: how do you find bands anymore? Because when we were kids, the record labels were the ones pushing the bands and telling you this is who you should like, and that's who we would listen to. Whether they were on MTV or wherever it was. Where now, just like you said, now there's the choices are limitless. And for me in the beginning, it was overwhelming. Like I wouldn't even know where to start. I would even look up a genre, and there's still hundreds and hundreds of bands, and I don't know who any of these guys are. And then I started to kind of figure it out. But going back to what you were saying, even about live gigs, there's a lot of you see a lot of older bands from our day that are touring and doing amazing. They're selling out arenas just like they did when they were in their heyday. I took my son to go see the Deftones when they were touring last year, and they all of a sudden became this hot new band for whatever reason 20 years later. And I remember my son telling you, have you heard of these guys? I'm like, yeah, like a long time ago I had a lot of their albums, and he's like, oh, they're so, he was obsessed with them. So I didn't have any other albums on vinyl. I had CDs, so I bought all their albums, and then we go to the tour, and it was just like you described. It was a lot of families there. There was the original fans, and they were taking their kids who are now new fans, and the same thing, mosh pits and the whole deal is like a flashback. But this interest all of a sudden in rock, or in not even just that genre, in anything, of going to live shows, and the ones we can afford, because some of these shows are ridiculous how expensive they are, but that's another topic. So that does that I think that has also helped too. Deftones, somehow TikTok, or I think is what I've heard, is what helped elevate them, because people were using their music in their reels and in their videos. And that's just, or when Stranger Things, when Running Up the Hill became a hit 40 years later, or whenever it was, that song was it wasn't even that big of a hit then. It's a bigger hit now than it was then. And that song was like forgotten, and now the kids can't get enough of it.
Yeah.
So it's just a funny thing how music works now. And so it's not, it by no means is dead. Or the one thing I noticed too is, and you guys, you probably have noticed, whenever you read comments on a post of a new band, you get a lot of old heads in there that, oh, this music isn't like it was in our day. And you just sound like a bunch of old angry people, and I remember as a kid, my parents saying the same thing, about the music I listened to. If I was when I was a young guitarist, a guitar player, I was into hair metal, and oh my gosh, I couldn't, my parents would just go off on these guys are just a bunch of long-haired weirdos, and that's not even music, and they can't even sing, and it's the same stuff that now we're saying about our kids' music. So it's just a cycle, and I've had to come to terms, just tell people, look, some of this music isn't even for us, it's for them. Just like our music was for us and not our parents. And you can go back even further from when rock first started, so that's where I kind of see this full circle happening.
Yeah, and I think the point you made around the cost, like, of going to see those bands that were around in our day, it's really expensive. Like Metallica just did 2 gigs in a stadium here in Dublin not that long ago, and you had to buy tickets to both gigs. That's the way, so they're sold in a pair, and they were like, I don't know, I think they were like €150 each. So like that's 300 quid. Like, and I think that's actually helping these smaller, younger bands, because younger people who are in college and stuff like that, they don't have 150, €200 to be going to these big, huge stadium unless mom or dad takes them.
Right.
So what they do is they go, well, why don't we just go and spend 15 or 20 quid and go and see this up and coming band? And they're getting that whole movement and that whole experience. And it's, when we look back to the photos of the bands we loved starting out, and they're in this tiny little club and it's all sweaty and, the whole lot, and they're getting to experience all of that. And it's just, I think it's fantastic. And I think it'll lead to, like, everything is cyclical. So there'll be another digital renaissance, and that's the way it's going to be. But Jay Sean, I want to kind of ask you, was there one particular album that you got as a kid or a teenager or as an adult that really kind of, from the moment you put it on, put the needle down and went, oh my God, this is just the greatest thing I've ever heard?
Stop Making Sense. Talking Heads. Best album ever.
Wow.
And I mean, that kind of goes to something that Ray had mentioned earlier. And actually directly to this last conversation you were just speaking on. Collecting, then you collect it. There's nothing to collect today. You can download, you can buy it on Spotify, but the majority of people, I have accounts on all those different things. I don't pay a penny for those accounts. I don't need to pay for a particular band because it filters through all the songs that I like, and that's that, and there's no need to buy it. Go back to when we started, we took up space with our music. Records took up space on the shelf, cassettes took up shelf space, took up space in the car when with the cassettes and CD binders. Like music was something that you had to own in order to enjoy. And if you had that type of eclectic taste that's so easy to do today, because you can just listen to anything you want for free from hundreds of genres and artists, without paying anything. If you wanted to do that in our time, that was a big investment. And the whole thing around music was a routine, especially when you go back to the vinyl. It was getting your vinyl, the way you take it out, cleaning your needle, replacing needles. It was just a whole process, like sitting down and having tea in the traditional sense, where everything, there's a pattern and steps to it. You did your music that way. But now there's no music to really be purchased unless it's online. It doesn't take up space. And we don't listen to things all the way through. I can't imagine listening to Stop Making Sense without going from start to finish, because it tells a story. It builds to a crescendo that you would never realize if you didn't hear it all the way through from start to finish. Can't remember what the name of the Guns N' Roses album was, but it was a dual album, first big dual album that they ever came out
Use Your
with.
Illusion.
Usually
Yeah.
1 and 2.
Uh-huh. And it was like the whole thing, listening to it from start to finish, it told a story, and it was like
It's like a concept album.
Exactly. And today you just don't get that, because you have to go out of your way to buy someone's entire album. And I think it's the industry and everything that's kind of brought music to where it's at, because again, for artists back then, you sold albums. That's how you made money. Now with everyone listening to stuff for free, yeah, you have to charge more for your shows because you don't have that revenue that you had in the olden days where you made money off your albums and your CD sales. So it's a tough one. And for new artists, I see them coming out a lot now, releasing stuff on vinyl. And they're starting to get that mentality. Well, hey, how am I going to get my money now? If I put it on vinyl, I can sell that directly and make money. Because if I'm on Apple Music, it's going to get used for free. And I don't know. But you asked a simple question. My answer was very simple. Stop Making Sense, Talking Heads. It just tells a story. When I hear individual songs from that album today on the radio, it frustrates me because I know the scene. I know how many characters are on the stage at that time. I see the stage being built, and I'm like, you just dropped me in too soon. Take me back to the beginning. And I just can't listen to his songs unless I listen to it from the album all the way through. Yeah.
Brilliant. Tana, what about you? Have you got one that really resonates with you?
Black Celebration
Hmm.
from Depeche
That's a
Mode.
good one.
I love Depeche Mode.
Do you?
Anybody
I
that
never
knows,
get that.
anybody that knows me knows that. um, to me, everything that they've ever put out tells a story. Um, uh, that to me, like Jay Sean said, that was a big storytelling album. Um, one thing I do miss about CDs is, do y'all remember how you could find a hidden track and there would be like, oh, there's a hidden track, and you'd get so excited, like, oh my God. I miss those days. I miss that. I'm like, oh, so I miss that. But yeah, probably Black Sabbath. There's a couple of albums though. I remember I remember listening to it constantly. That was for me I remember when I got that album. But I remember when I was really little, and I would always listen to the soundtrack of Saturday Night Fever. I have these
great
huge
soundtrack.
Earphones, and I would always listen to that with my dad. I'm gonna cry a little, maybe, but Saturday Night Fever too. I would always listen to that stupid soundtrack. But probably for me, Black Celebration.
Very good. Ray, go on. What about you? Is there one that comes to mind?
I could pick one. I mean, one that comes to mind right now is The Cure's Disintegration. There's a lot of nostalgia behind that one for me, and it has a mood, you know, kind of going back to that whole conceptual idea of an album. It had a mood to it, and it was dark, it was beautiful, it was just, you know, it was I don't know, that's my sit on the shore at sunset with clouds and just getting lost in the moment album. But yeah, I mean, there's so many other ones I could probably go on to, but that's the first one that comes to mind, because I'm like Tana. I like that stuff. With Depeche Mode, you know, Violator was another one for me. You know, I went to that show and saw that, and that was at their peak. You know, and so that was impactful. You know, it definitely leaves a mark, and you know where you were when you used to listen to that, and still go back to them. Still sound just as fresh today to me. So yeah, those are a couple of mine.
Yeah,
I know what you're gonna say.
You what? Oh, okay, yeah. Let's hear it. Let's hear it.
You'll never
Pearl
guess.
Jam 10.
10.
You read my mind.
That's a great album. That's my favorite.
It's a great album.
Yeah,
it is. Yeah, just from the moment. Like I was lucky in one sense. So I was obviously the eldest child, so I had to introduce the music to the family, and my best friend, he had an older sister who was probably 3 or 4 years older than us. So she had this unbelievable music collection. So whenever and they would kill each other. So whenever she'd kind of go out, we'd be like, let's go and pick some of her albums up. And we'd go and we'd rough around. And I was like, what's this Pearl Jam 10? And he goes, let's stick it on. And from the very first, the Master Slave riff, the intro, was like, this is changing my life as I'm listening to it. This is unbelievable. And so much so that like I end up actually getting the record, and I still have it. Now, granted, I have about 10 copies of the same album, because
10 copies of 10.
Yeah. Well played. Because I literally wore them out. So like my original one, you know, everyone goes, oh, that's going to be worth so much money. I'm like, no, it's not, because it's like skips the whole way through. But just going back as well to what you were saying, Tana, like so my parents were very young when they had me, and they were musicians, and my dad had this big, huge record player, you know, the big old ones that was kind of really wide. And I remember as a kid going and sitting in their bedroom, and the Joshua Tree and Sgt. Pepper's were just on repeat over and over and over again. And like that, when you hear the songs, I am just transported right back to sitting in my parents' bedroom. Life was good, you know. I was whatever age, I was a kid, and it's just such a lovely feeling. And I was in after Christmas this year. Obviously, I was in a record shop, and this she was probably 11 or 12, come in with her, maybe a mother, maybe a grandmother. I don't want to speculate, but she got a voucher of Christmas, and I was looking through records while they were beside me, and she was like, I can't find it, I can't find it. And my mom was like, look, we'll go and ask for it. And she's like, no, I want to find it. I want to find it myself. And I was like, what are you looking for? And she was like, Taylor Swift's album. And there was a couple of lads beside me, like probably in their late 20s, and they were like, Taylor Swift? Oh my God, you're surrounded by all of this. But I was like, in my head going, yeah, but lads, this is the introduction. This is the pathway into records. And then she's going to, when she hits like 12, 13, she's going to discover these brilliant bands. Like, I remember taking the piss out of my dad. He was slagging me off listening to Pearl Jam one day. He was like you're saying, mate, that band's shit. Subsequently, he's seen them numerous times with me. But I was like, yeah, but like, you like Led Zeppelin. They're a load of shit too.
I'm leaving now.
Yeah. How wrong I was. And I was lucky enough that for my dad's 50th, was his 40th or his 50th? Could have been his 40th birthday. I managed to get us tickets to the Celebration Day, Led Zeppelin's last ever show together. And it was just unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Yeah. Lucky man.
I'm very lucky. Yeah. It was unbelievable.
So
So
hate on the pop music, by the way. I've got my Taylor Swift and Billie Eilish and Olivia Rodrigo in my collection too. So, you know, us old guys can learn some things.
thanks, Ray. Nice of you to call. We'll don't call us. We'll call you.
You can thank my 11-year-old daughter for that, by the way. I don't think I would have listened to those if it wasn't for her.
Yeah, no, we've all got our sort of skeletons in our closet when it comes to some of the bands we'll listen to.
You know, comedy was pretty big too for me on albums. There's a lot of comedians that I used
yeah.
to like to listen to. I fell into my dad's record collection, and he had a Rudy Raymore album that had me captivated for about 6 months. Played it every single day. The Dignified, I think it was Dignified Monkey bit that he does, absolutely hilarious. But comedy was huge. I mean, comedy section was as big as any other in the record stores I went to.
That's funny you bring that up. I remember being in a room with a couple of my cousins listening to Eddie Murphy's Delirious on the cassette. And we just thought we were so, like, you know, getting away with something because it was just so naughty listening to that stuff at 10 years old or whatever we were at the time. But yeah, I've got that. I just triggered that memory.
Yeah, I remember getting, when my grandmother passed away, she had kept a lot of my dad's records, and I borrowed the ones that I wanted to keep. But there was like Billy Connolly albums in there, and like that, you just stick them on, and you're like, oh my God, this is so funny, just so funny. But that would now, I don't know, would that happen now? Like, can you buy comedy albums on vinyl anymore? Like, I wouldn't think
I
so.
don't think so. They're all on Netflix now
Yeah.
Next time I go to a record store, I'm going to look for that.
for old comedy records.
Yeah.
For old comedy records, see if they come up. I
Right.
don't think I've ever seen.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, we've all got a little thing we have to do now. We all have to go and find a comedy record. That's what we have to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, Ray, you're going to say there.
Oh, well, one thing I was just thinking that I've noticed how the shift in music has affected just society in general is there were so many genres, specific genres when we were growing up. You had rock, you had rap, you had electronic, R&B. I mean, immense, and that created cliques within us as teenagers. And that would reflect your fashion. That would reflect the way you talk, the people you hung out with. It's very divisive in a lot of ways. Where now I don't see that anymore. I don't see cliques like that because genres have now like kind of blended. You don't
Yeah.
have those type. I mean, you still have like the main genres, but uh, they've kind of coexisted now to where that's something I noticed with my kids when they're in high school is you don't have everyone kind of like blends now.
Yeah.
That's a shift that I've noticed with I guess I would credit streaming because so much of that is available to everyone now. That's the only way I can explain it, but that's something
Mm.
I've noticed too. Is that there's no more gangs of which team are you on anymore?
Yeah.
You
And
could just as well be listening to Punjabi and roll right into like blues or something, and everything
Yeah.
just kind of
No,
bounce
my
around.
son, my Deftones son, he was in a Tyler the Creator kick at the same time, and it's just, I mean, I think it's cool because it's not limiting in a way,
yeah.
it's just everything's available to everyone and you can like everything and you won't be shamed like, I feel like we were in our day, if you were part of the new wave kids and all of a sudden you were listening to, I don't know, Run DMC or something, you might get, booted from that group or something. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's one of the beauties of like people talk about snowflakes and all this kind of stuff, but the younger this generation now, like you can be trans, you can be,
Right.
a kid with makeup, you can be like a guy with makeup, you can be whatever, and
Hmm.
you're not defined by that, and they
Right.
kind of just accept it. Whereas it's more the older generations that kind of go, you
Yeah.
can't come in looking like that. So
And
I
then they
think that
pass
that's a
that on to
good,
their kids.
yeah,
That's how that's learned. But yeah, you're right. For the I guess the general view is that yeah, everybody's pretty inclusive. Things people talk about things now,
mhm,
um, and that's a really cool evolution that I've just seen happen through the years.
yeah, it's brilliant,
Mhm.
folks. We've hit on an hour. This has been, I'm not going to say my favorite podcast, but one of my favorite podcasts that we've done. Not because it's speaking to something that I love, and my um, local record shop has some records set by for me that he's probably going to give out to me for not coming and buying them yet, but he has them set aside for me. But Tana, I want to say thanks so much for bringing the topic, and as always, you bring some brilliant ideas to the table. So keep them coming. Jay Sean, thanks so much for your regular contribution, and yeah, Talking Heads. I'm not so sure.
Oh, those are fighting words there.
This partnership is over.
Yeah, done. Yeah. And Ray, the star of the show, what a great person to have on for episode 50. I want to say thank you so much, and I hope you'd be happy to come back again and chat to us
My
again.
pleasure. I'd
very
love
soon.
to.
Brilliant. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your ears. We will be back next week with another Future Proof Knowledge podcast. Until then, look after yourself.
FPK, Future Proof Knowledge Podcast. Mind unlocked. With every episode we cast real talk, real tools, wisdom on the fly. Tune in, geek out, reach for the sky. FPK, Future Proof Knowledge